Hello, everybody. Welcome to William Steele True Crime Channel podcast. As my fans from Inmate to Roommate and my True Crime channel know, I try to put on inspirational stories. Guys have turned their life around, come out of a background similar to mine. You guys know I served 18 years for nonviolent crimes. And I had the incredible, fortune to meet some really good guys who have got out of prison and turned their life around, especially when Inmate to Roommate came out. And a lot of the fans were people that got out of prison. And they respect, what I'm doing, trying to build up this true crime channel. I'm doing crime victim advocacy. We stand up for crime victims now. I've had law enforcement on my show, ATF agent that used to chase me around, a very good guest, Ignacio Esteban, ATF guy who's written a bunch of books. I do producers. Ciro DiPaggio, he did the movie Mob King, which is about to be released in a few months. Mob King's gigantic. I'm one of the few people he trusted to review Mob King. So I would suggest everybody watch it. This guy did time. He was a gang member. He was a mobster in South Florida. He's so far out of prison now, just a few years, he's already made 3 movies. And so he just got a distribution deal for Mob King. He allowed me to view the whole movie, do a review, and a shout out to him and his success, and Anthony Caliendo, his partner in this endeavor. Well, today we have another very, very special guest, a guy who, I just met by Bill Stacks, chatting with Stacks channel. Bill Stacks introduced me to him just a few days ago. Chad Marks. So here's the thing. Chad Marks, the name rang a bell, and I didn't know why. And I was doing some more research on him, getting ready for this interview. And I have a stack of articles from Prison Legal News, the preeminent legal magazine. I was a subscriber in prison for at least 10 years. Paul Wright's the founder. And he's been all over the country moving around with it. But Chad Marks, who you're looking at on screen with me right now, was a frequent contributor. And I got a lot of benefit and interesting material from his articles because I was law clerk. So, we kind of – but this guest here is something special. Former gang member, been out of prison. I think it's just 2 or 3 years now. He's doing prison consultancy, helping people that are still incarcerated. He's an expert in federal law and jailhouse lawyering, and has gotten several people out of prison, including some big names that we're going to mention here in a minute. So Chad is, like I said, a regular contributor to Prison Legal News, jailhouse lawyer, former gang member, completely reformed his life. I saw an article even with him in Families Against Mandatory Minimums, have done an article about him. Gangland, Newswire, did stuff on him. If you go look him up on YouTube, subscribe to all his channels. His channel is called Blood on the Razor Wire. Blood on the Razor Wire. I ask all my fans of Inmate to Roommate and all my fans here across every platform, hit subscribe here as well, but please look up Chad's stuff on Blood on the Razor Wire, all across social media, and Freedom Fighters Prison Consultants. That being said, I'd like to introduce Chad Marks. Chad, thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, brother. I definitely appreciate it.
Tell us a little about yourself. How did you get this journey started? What ended you up in prison, and what happened to your heart or your mind or your family that compelled you to take a whole other path when you got out?
Okay, so like you said, my name's Chad Marks. I'm from Rochester, New York. At the age of 24, I was arrested for a drug conspiracy, ended up going to trial, lost trial, and was sentenced to a 40-year federal mandatory minimum. Once that happened, I went to probably one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous federal prison in the country. I went to USP Big Sandy, a place where, people are dying there on a regular basis. People are being stabbed. Just a very, very dangerous place, very dangerous environment. Wasn't always a nice guy, like you mentioned. I don't really talk too much about the gang stuff because that's stuff that I put in my past. But like I said, not always a nice guy. Ended up changing my life. And I realized that, if I ever want to get out of prison, it's going to be on me. I'm going to be the architect of whether or not I get out or I stay here for the rest of my life. And eventually I ended up changing my life probably 8-9 years into my prison bid. I ended up getting a college degree, taught fast-track GED classes, alternative violence project seminars. I just did a whole bunch of stuff in prison to better myself. I guess when you get older and you're serving that amount of time, eventually something clicks. That's how I see it. Not for everybody, but for a lot of guys. Something clicks where you say, man, this can't be it. This can't be my life. And that kind of happened for me. And I got on the right path. And eventually my judge would release me after Donald Trump passed the First Step Act.
Okay. Well, it's fascinating because you were a prolific jailhouse lawyer. Now, I took a similar track. I was on the offender representative committee. I was a law clerk, and in the state system. I don't have your experience with the federal system, but I've been in several states' prison systems. I've always worked in law libraries, with the administration, trying to do like grievance resolution to avoid litigation and trying to help people enforce their rights for medical care, habeas corpus, ineffective assistance of counsel. You know the routine. So in your case, you've come across some really prominent people in prison that you actually helped. Can you share with us some of those names here? Are you allowed to? Or
Yeah, not a problem. So I don't know if your guests know, but like the rapper Little Baby, his real father, not the guy that died. Some people think this guy that died is his real father. I helped him. He had a life plus 55-year sentence. He ended up getting his sentence knocked down to 27 years. Helped Guy Fisher, first African American to ever own the Apollo Theater. Helped him out a lot.
wow.
Russell Simmons, his adopted son. He was a rapper, Jinx the Juvie, did his post-conviction motion, ended up getting him back into court. But I am the guy that wrote the first compassionate release motion in the country. It was for the chief of police in Texas. After Trump passed the First Step Act, I wrote that motion. And since then, thousands and thousands of people have benefited from it and have gotten out of jail, including myself.
What city in Texas was he chief of police?
The mayor, I want to say, I did this case about 4 years ago, right? 3.5 years ago. His name's Conrado Cantu. So okay. I did the Conrado Cantu case.
I know in the feds there's a lot of dangerous people, but a lot of also corrupt public officials, a lot of mobsters. So I know you came across, the cream of the crop in the prisoner underworld. So.
Actually, Sellies with Steve Caracappa for a little while, right? About a week. That's the mafia cops, the guy that was going around.
He was killing people in New York, right?
For the mob, but he was the lead homicide detective for the mafia unit, and he was the guy, killing the people.
Right? Didn't he die recently of cancer? There was two of them. He was the skinnier of the two, I think.
Yep, him and Eppolito.
Yeah. They do car stops and execute people on the side of the road on behalf of the mob. But he died recently, I believe, of cancer. Or at least one of them did.
I think they both died. Definitely a dangerous guy, man. I spent time with Whitey Bulger when he was stabbed in one of the prisons. I used to see him every day at rec, talk to him all the time. Some guys wanted him. There was another guy that was a drug addict from Boston. He wanted a way out of the prison, and that's how the federal prison system works sometimes. He's like, you know what? I'm going to stab Whitey Bulger, get a transfer because I owe a bunch of money for drug debts in prison. So he stabbed Whitey Bulger with a pencil. Whitey ended up in the hole. I was in the hole, cell alone, rec alone. So I would talk to him at rec every day. Kind of an interesting character. You could see death in him, man. But, dangerous guy when he was young.
He was a treacherous dude. He had corrupted FBI agents up in Boston, and they were letting him get away with all these murders up in Boston, while at the same time he was helping go after the Italian mob in the same city. So basically eliminating his competition by cooperating with his childhood friend. What was it? I forget the name of the agent's name, but he had a lot of. Yeah, Connolly. Yeah, John Connolly. He's actually incarcerated, I think, in Florida now in protective custody, because he let these guys know where somebody was hiding out down there or whatever, an enemy of theirs. And they went down and killed them. So he was telling these people where these people were. But so you met some fascinating characters. I saw some of your interviews today. Really fascinating. Guys, telling all kinds of aspects of what they went through in prison. And I like the way you approach it too, because even when like one guy you were interviewing, I forget his name, said, at that prison I had a blast. And you said, wait a minute. I don't want my viewers or any kids watching this thinking that there's any kind of prison where you're having a blast. So let's not put that out there. It's a horrible place. And, we don't want that life anymore for either one of us. You really got honored for that. It was pretty cool.
You know something? This is the deal, right? My channel, Blood on the Razor Wire TV, the mission is to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death in the streets through our stories and experiences. And every video that I do on my channel, I always bring it back and try to give a positive message, right? Because that's what the goal is. YouTube doesn't pay my bills. I wish it did, but it don't. So really, man, I do it because I want to. It's therapeutic. I spent 17 years, 5 months, and 21 days of my life straight in prison. There's a big misconception that federal prison is a nice place. It's definitely not. 2 days ago, they just killed another prisoner at USP Pollock. Stabbed him, killed him, choked him. it's definitely a dangerous place to be, not a place that anybody wants to go. It's not steaks and tennis courts, and it's just not, man.
Yeah, I think the conception is like you had the one that was on the Air Force Base in Florida back in the day. And then after 9/11, a lot of things changed. So my understanding is the federal lows are still relatively laid back, but those perks were eliminated. But still, they're better than being in the USPs and all that, So I've heard some horror stories about that.
I'll tell you this, right? Eventually, throughout my 17 years, I ended up going to a low, FMC Lexington, my last 9 months. And I have to tell you, it was one of the worst places I've ever been. I would have rather stayed where I was at. I was at FCI Raybrook. It was better than being in the USP, obviously, because the violence is toned down.
I was next door to Raybrook. I was at Adirondack. You know where that is?
I was in Adirondack, too, in state prison. I did state bid before the federal bid. So I was
That's the one that it used to be a tuberculosis hospital, red brick, all that. Listen, I was there, and I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Raybrook next door. When you guys had games over there, loud football games, we can hear it. We can hear it over in our rec yard. So I was at Adirondack. It's that.
Where were you at Adirondack? I'm curious.
Years ago, it was probably 80, 89, something like that. Years ago. Yeah. I was there.
89, I was about 11.
The cells had big, gigantic windows. It was a real laid-back place. The windows were huge. And I was like, wait a minute, why are these windows so big? And they said it used to be years ago a tuberculosis hospital. So they needed a lot of fresh air going in there. We had a pool hall in there at that time. I don't know if it still was there when you were there. But there was a pool hall there.
Bathtubs in some of the rooms in the building in the back. They had ovens there. You could get frying pans and stuff from home. The commissary was excellent. It was all right.
I like that.
Prison it was.
I started off in Comstock initially. You know how horrible that place was back in the day, especially. I was there in '88. Yep, I never forget. I was in D515, D block, D515, and they were renovating, and they used to kick us out to I was supposed to go to a shock program. I was like 25. I was right on the borderline for that, but I had, basically, home invasion charge, impersonation of a police officer. So I was kind of borderline to go anyway because of the charge. But they said, it's first time in prison, don't worry about it. You're going to go. And then on my bag from downstate, reception center downstate, they put, shock. So I was okay. We pull into Comstock. And I remember that, I think it was a big black gate that slides over. It's like real ominous looking when you get there. You shackle hand and foot. I'm like, man, I feel bad for the guys getting off here, Next thing you know, they're calling my name. I'm like, shit. I said, you sure you didn't make a mistake? My bag says shock program.
I spent 2 years of my life there.
Yeah. Hey, did they still do the intake? You go around back in the basement, and there's like all pipes and shit down there, and cages, like chicken wire cages.
Yep, 100%. I was on D4 when I was there. I was on C block, 8 company. Then eventually you can make it to honor block. I made it there for about 2 weeks and got into something over there. So I was over there with Tony Rampino, the Roach.
Okay, I don't know, but I've seen people killed there, including I think it was like my first or second day. They were renovating the floors, putting some non-stick shit down, and they had to strip it and sandblast. So they evacuate everybody. You go down all those noisy stairs to the rec yard, and it's all blacktop and walls. They don't build the wall prisons anymore, supposedly. But so this is, you go out there, and you know how it is in the older prisons, is everything's segregated by race. You have the blacks, the whites, the Hispanics. If something jumps off, it's usually, the white and Hispanic. But I've seen so much crazy crap, man, in Comstock. I was like, man, get me the hell out of this place. Listen, but I met a guy there, and I'll give him a shout out. I don't even know if he's dead or alive right now. Nice guy, Bill Reynolds. He was in for doing some robberies, life sentence. And at that time, I had some college under my belt. And he said, look, you seem like a pretty smart guy. And he was a law clerk. And he says, if you learn some law, he said, you'll be invaluable to everybody. You'll never have a problem in prison. And he started teaching me law in New York. That was that many years ago, the late 80s. And so I got nothing but respect for that guy. I stayed there, for about a year over there. And then I started getting transferred lower from Adirondack. I went to, I think it was Lincoln Work Release. Yeah, Lincoln's the one in Manhattan, right, off Central Park. Anyway, So I went to Lincoln Work Release. I went home from there. But so we have some similar stories about that place. So what are you doing now with your life, man? I see you've got a book out. Pitch your book a little bit. Let my fans know what your book is, how they can find it.
Okay, so the book is Blood on the Razor Wire.
Okay.
Same name as my YouTube channel, right? It's a violent book because that was the environment that I lived in. It was a dangerous place. It's about Big Sandy. It's about the New York car. In the federal system, we got what we call cars. If you're from the East Coast, you're from New York. We have the New York and Boston guys. We were together. You might have the Hispanic dudes. You have the Mexican dudes over here. Everyone's labeled as a car, pretty much. The Crip car, the Blood car. And, I talk about a lot of that stuff in the book. My cellie was from New York, Adam Oliveri. I talk about him throughout the book. He ended up stabbing the CO. The CO took his wine, and he told me, hey, man, I'm stabbing this dude. And at first, I'm like, stabbing him? Yeah, okay. And he's like, no, I'm about to go stab him. And, we had a fake shelf in our locker, which the cops ended up finding after he stabbed the cop. And in that fake shelf inside the locker, man, he had like 10 knives in there. Went in there, pulled a couple things out of there, went down there and stabbed the CO. And he wasn't playing games. I mean, this is a place where, and I've done some videos on it. I put up pictures on the Discord because YouTube don't let you put up the pictures. But, I mean, there was guys there that have killed people. And I did a story on one of the cats that were there who, this guy from D.C. was a booty bandit. Tried to do some things to this kid. And the kid killed him. And I got the pictures of the dude dead and everything. And he killed him. And the crazy part is they knew what happened. And they told him, look, you're going to cop out or we're going to give you life. He ended up copping out to, I think, another 18 years, 20 years for killing this dude that was trying to, this was a little dude. And the dude he killed was like 6'2". It's just, the book is a serious book, man. And Big Sandy was probably one of the most dangerous prisons in the country. It still is a dangerous place. But when I was there, it was definitely a dangerous place.
Just for YouTube and our collective fans, yours and mine, I'll restate, this is an inspirational channel of guys who changed their lives. And we don't tell our stories, the little war stories here and there, and how horrible these places is to glorify the poor choices we made to get us there. We're trying to do, at least I am, I know you are from what I've heard, inspirational, change your life. The lifestyle you led is not worth it. And trying to talk to kids, reach kids, teens. In my case, I'm getting invitations to speak to, law students and universities and, church groups and all that. So just so we put that on the record, man, we're trying not to. Sometimes, you can find yourself, and I'm guilty of it, man. I've done it before on these shows, even my own show, talking about, certain scores you did or whatever. And, then fans will say, oh, he's just, talking about his past. I don't want to hear that crap. And I catch myself, and I try to remember always to put that in there, no matter what. We're trying to help people in what we're doing with our life.
Let me say this, right? Let me say this, right, William? Like I said, the mission for me is to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death in the streets. And what I mean by that is, kids going out and killing kids. So the reality is this is there's two roads, and whatever road you decide, this is the reality of that road. It is a dangerous place. It's not about war stories. It's about what's real and what's wrong. It's about giving them the truth that you can go down this road and be in a cell with a guy like this. It's not glamorizing. It's giving you what's real so that you can make a decision that you might say, you know what? I've seen those pictures. I don't want to be in a place like that. Maybe I should make some different choices because people make irrational, irresponsible choices every day. And it could be that choice that you make, a 10-second choice that you make that lands you in prison for the rest of your life or lands you in prison for a 10, 15-year bid. And you're in a cell with a guy that has a life sentence that doesn't care if you live or die. So these are the realities of prison. And that's why I talk about that stuff. And like I said, on my channel, I always bring everything, with a message at the end where you always get the message. And sometimes people do. And I think you'll learn this on YouTube is sometimes people want to hear that stuff. But that's the stuff that brings people in, right? And once you got them, then you give them the message, brother.
Right. Yeah. I definitely respect what you're doing, man. I give you a lot of props. Again, a shout out to Bill Stacks, Chatting with Stacks. Go check out his channel, Chatting with Stacks. Bill Stacks introduced us the other day, and he has a true crime channel. He was a former gang member, and now he's helping the homeless. He's helping the addicted. He's putting messages out of hope and that the cycle of incarceration and gangs and drugs doesn't have to be a lifelong thing. Stop it before they'll stop you. Like he said, Chad says they'll put you in a prison cell the rest of your life. You don't know who the hell you're getting for a cellmate. You got to deal with all their bullshit and all their drama. And it doesn't have to be a big, giant, scary-looking dude. It can be a little scrawny dude who's just tired of doing time and then ends up trying to kill you in your sleep. I've seen a guy get killed in his sleep. So it's real serious what we're talking about. And although there's good corrections officers and administrators, we both know there's a ton of corruption, and they'll turn the blind eye. They can care less. And if you go to them to complain about another inmate or another staff member, you're going to have more trouble. So it's just a nightmare when you get there. There's no way out once you get there, other than just doing what me and him did and doing positive things, getting involved with positive activities and programs. And that's what our message is. So I appreciate if you guys subscribe to Chad's channels and, pitch whatever you want. Just talk about whatever else you want to bring up. I'm welcome to hear you out. What do you do for guys with this freedom fighters? What are you up to with that?
Okay, so like I said earlier, right? Trump ended up passing the First Step Act, and when he passed that, it changed a bunch of things. But the laws that I was subject to, I ended up with a 40-year federal mandatory minimum. I got 5 years for, as crazy as this sounds, a 12-gauge shotgun, 25 years for a 22 rifle, and 10 years for the drugs, right? So the First Step Act changed that. They said, you know what? You can't get the second 25 anymore. Now it has to be 5 and 5. But in my case back then, what they did was they stacked it. So I ended up with a 40-year federal mandatory minimum. They changed that. So eventually I would win and I would get myself out of prison, right? But I told dudes when I left, I would be the voice of the voiceless. So I came out here. My parole officer told me, hey, you got 30 days. You got to get a job. I told him I am the job. He said, no, you got to get a job. And he started suggesting, well, you spent a lot of time in prison, maybe a construction job, maybe McDonald's. Right. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I can show you better than I can tell you. And that's what I did. I put a paralegal and prison consultant firm together. I do a lot of post-conviction. I work with lawyers all over the country. Compassionate release, because like I said, I wrote that first one. Clemency packages, prison consulting, do some white-collar prison consulting for people. But at the end of the day, they can always go check out my website. I win a lot of cases, man. And you know why? Because I despise some of the stuff that the government does. I've seen guys from our state, from New York, go in there at 17, 18 years old with 50 years and don't know how to read and write. 50 years for a nonviolent drug crime, as crazy as that sounds.
And they got screwed over and the lawyer didn't do their job and the system just let it happen to him.
A friend named Jimmy Romans. He had a life sentence. He was my best friend in prison. One of my best friends, him and another guy, Chris Hunter. And well, I had a few good guys in there. And I'm sure you can relate. But I told him, look, man, when I get out of here, man, I'm going to do everything I can to help you get out of prison. I wrote his clemency petition, and eventually it was granted. He had some people advocating for him. I advocated for him from day one. And Trump granted his clemency petition, and he got released. But he was serving life for a nonviolent marijuana case, man. Life. He had spent 12 years of his life in prison. So that's what I do at Freedom Fighters. A lot of this stuff's outlined on my website. Like I said, man, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. I think your viewers might be interested in, some of the stories that we got on there. Some of the interviews.
Check it out. Subscribe. The links are all in the description. And please check out his links to his book. Purchase his book. Check out his services. And subscribe. I ask every one of my fans to please hit this guy up because he's the real deal. He's doing what I'm in the process of building. Got sidetracked a little bit by a TV show, which I'm not complaining about. Shout out to A&E Network and Sharp Entertainment. Thank you. But it's quite the journey, man. So what are you working on currently? Still doing the prison consultancy? Do you speak to groups and stuff like that as well?
I haven't yet, but I had some stuff that I was going to do. Then the COVID thing messed it up. I got another plan too, man. I'm going to start putting some stuff together with a halfway house, reentry house. That's kind of what my lane is, and that's what we're looking forward to doing. I've been saving up money to get that together, because there's so many people that come out and got nowhere to go. So many people come out, and myself, I went in Walmart and, I was scared to use I didn't know how to use a credit card. And I didn't want to be embarrassed. I had a hard time coming out and walking across the street, the cars, and I was nervous. I lived alone when I first came out. So, the transition's tough. But, I think I told you eventually when you talk about success, I was married, right, when I was in prison. And I got a 40-year sentence, told my wife she had to go on with her life. And she went on with her life. I got out of prison. We reconnected. We got remarried. And we just had 2 little twin boys. They're about 14 months old almost. So I'm trying to live my best life, man, and help people along the way so they don't have to experience what I've experienced, what you've experienced. And that's kind of what I'm doing with my life, brother.
I did 18 years, like I said, on this last bid. It wasn't even my first bid. And I've been out only about a year now. And the whole premise of the A&E show that I star in, now this thing has 11 million views on TikTok. It became the second most popular reality show on television. 60 days in, one of the most popular shows on A&E. My show destroyed it in the ratings. Shawshank Redemption. You watch Shawshank Redemption, you'll see my face on all the commercials pitching it, pitching Inmate to Roommate, which is now streaming. And I can't tell you what's happening next because of contracts and NDAs. But let me tell you something. It was so popular. Use your imagination, if more's coming. But I know that I still struggle. You said, how long have you been out about now? It's a little over 2 years, you said?
Almost 3 years. I got out in June 2020.
Just over a year for me. And I was just wondering, like, the psychological aspect of this. Mine was 18 years this time. And do you find yourself like they say, oh, you can get SSI and post-traumatic stress and all this. Well, I didn't think I was suffering with anything, and I'm not going down that road. I'm not trying to get on that. I want to earn my living writing books and helping people. But I notice when things slow down a little bit and I reflect back on the amount of time, the block of time and loss I sustained, that it messes with my head really bad lately. I mean, more and more, especially since filming slowed down a little bit. But now I'm doing another TV show, and that's stepping up. But do you go through any of that? Like, maybe I know you have twins and your wife, and you're probably really busy. But when there's a downtime and you're just reflecting, maybe looking at something on the internet about somebody going through this, do you go through that emotional shit? Like, God, man, I threw away freaking all this time in my life. Does it mess with your head?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I have some PTSD stuff. I've been attacked in prison. When I came home from prison, I had my own apartment, right? I had a little townhouse. Right. And I've said this before. I kept the lights on in the bathroom. I used to put my dresser in front of my bedroom door. And I used to hear everything that was going on. I had a hard time sleeping. Right. And honestly, bro, and this ain't, I'm not bullshitting, but I slept with a knife. Kept a knife close. I would get up at night, have to use the bathroom and move the dresser and looking around. Yeah, I mean, after you spent 18 years of your life inside of a cell, it does affect you, man. I mean, there are things that affect you. I have a friend named John Powers who I actually interviewed on my channel. I was with John. He's the guy while they're stopping all the stuff at the ADX. He bit his fingers off, tattooed his whole body with a razor blade. The New York Times did a big special on him. But, looking at his story and stuff, yeah, sometimes that stuff hurts me, man. There's a HBO documentary out called Gladiator Days with Troy Kell. Watching some of that stuff bothered me. I actually interviewed him on my channel. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting better. It takes time. I mean, I am getting better. But after you've been through the things that we've been through and you've seen the things that you've seen, I thought I was going to walk out of prison. I'm not like them guys. And then when I got out here, reality hits you hard. It hits you in the face.
Yeah, I still get disoriented. Like if I go to, I don't go to Walmart often, but if I do go to a really big store, like just the spatial open space and the people wandering around and the selections, I still like stare at it sometimes and just like, it's hard to talk about, man, because I get kind of choked up. But just appreciating freedom, it's just, there's so much the sensory overload still. I'll go to the store with my girl and I say, hey, can you give me a hug? And it's like I feel like I'm having a nervous breakdown in the store sometimes. It's really weird, man. And it only started recently. It didn't start in the beginning. I was way too busy with the TV show and everything else. But it's like starting, when things go slow and I have more time to reflect, because when we film, sometimes we're filming 12, 14 hours a day, 10 days straight. They'll leave for a few days. They'll come back, film some more. But you're just so busy, you're just exhausted when you're done. And I had literally, I don't know if you started watching Inmate to Roommate yet. They literally get you coming out the gate, like literally like my boxes and everything, and I just want to pull away from the prison. And of course they want to pull in front of the prison to film for another, 5-6 hours of different interviews and, scenery in the back of the prison, putting a drone up. I said, you can't fly the drone near the prison. And they ended up locking the prison down on my day of release because the production was using a drone. And I was, but so, I'm feeling it now, man. I'm not going to belabor it. But I was just wondering if it's something you still go through this many years out, because it's something that's been hitting me lately. So
it takes time, man, but you'll get through it.
Yeah. All right. So anything else you'd like to say, Chad, man? This is your show right now. What would you like to put out there?
I mean, what I said earlier, come check us out. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. You might like what we're doing. As far as my book goes, they can grab it on Amazon, or you can get an autographed copy from me through my email on Freedom Fighters. But go read the first 3 chapters. They're for free on Amazon. The book sold out on the first day on Amazon. But I think you read them first 3 chapters, I think you'll want to read the rest. Definitely appreciate you bringing me on.
You have an audio book out too. I know that. I know you mentioned that to me. That's pretty cool.
Well, I narrate my own audio book. That's also on my channel. I independently sell that. But I definitely appreciate you. And, you've been through some stuff. And honestly, man, I mean, you got out of prison and you're a hell of a success. You're on TV. You got TV shows going, numerous books. So helping other people, definitely appreciate you as well, brother.
I appreciate it. And it's nice to meet you after all these years of reading your articles in Prison Legal News. Listen, I subscribed so many years, and here's when I stopped finally. They split it into Criminal Legal News. Remember that? When they split the publication? And I had just renewed for Prison Legal News, and then the material I paid for, I was getting a thinner magazine, and I was getting less material, and I had already just paid for my renewal, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going home in a year and a half. I'm not going to subscribe again. But I still have mad respect for Paul Wright and all the articles guys like you submitted and really helpful stuff. So listen, you have a good night. I'm going to continue to follow you. I think, and we'll talk about this privately, maybe we get with Bill Stacks and do like one of those 3 things live and have people call in from all of our shows. Want to do that one of these days?
Yeah, not a problem. Let me know.
Yeah, we can do something like that. Listen, have a good night. Everybody, please go to his sites, check out his book. All the links are in the description. Blood on the Razor Wire. And hit like and subscribe here. Thank you for following. We're trying to build my numbers up. And once again, thank you for joining us, Chad. It's been a pleasure to meet you finally. And I say I'm proud of you. You're very much inspirational to me because I'm just following in your footsteps. Sean Atwood, as we know, shout out to Sean. And you have a good night. We'll have you back again sometime.
Thank you. You too.
All right, Chad. Good night.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your support. Please remember, hit the like and subscribe button now.